Yes, Heuermann did work for a building department. He was in charge of maintaining the department's building standards and making sure structures were up to code. Heuermann also worked on approving designs for building projects to ensure they met all necessary requirements. Heuermann was dedicated to making sure the buildings he worked on were built and maintained to the highest safety standards. He was an advocate for the quality assurance of each building. He was always looking for ways to improve the safety of construction projects. Heuermann was passionate about making sure that buildings met the necessary building codes and did not put the safety of their inhabitants in danger. He was always on the lookout for any potential safety hazards that could arise, and he would take the necessary measures to mitigate any risks. Heuermann was also responsible for ensuring that any new building projects met the necessary regulations and legislation. He was a key player in making sure that any new buildings complied with the regulations and codes of the building department. Heuermann strived to ensure that buildings were up to the highest standards and met the expectations of the people. He worked to ensure that building structures were sound and the inhabitants of the building were safe. He was passionate about making sure that buildings met the legal requirements and could be used in a safe manner. He was also in charge of keeping the building standards up to date and making sure that they were implemented. Heuermann was a committed employee and took pride in making sure that the standards he set were followed and enforced. He worked hard to make sure that buildings were of high quality and safe for the public to use. Heuermann was also responsible for inspecting buildings regularly and ensuring that they met the necessary standards. He was diligent in making sure that any problems or defects were noticed and remedied immediately. He also worked with building owners to make sure that they had adequate maintenance plans in place to keep buildings safe and structurally sound. Heuermann was a firm believer in the importance of safety and making sure that buildings met the necessary regulations. He was always willing to answer questions and provide guidance to building owners to ensure that their buildings were up to code. Heuermann was a highly skilled and knowledgeable worker, and his work for the building department was invaluable. He was passionate about making sure that buildings were safe and secure for everyone who worked and lived within them. He was diligent in ensuring that any new buildings met the highest standards and did not put anyone in any danger. Heuermann was extremely dedicated to his work and always went the extra mile to make sure that buildings were safe. He was an advocate for building safety and made sure that everyone was following the necessary regulations and laws. He always made sure to use the best materials and the most up-to-date building codes during construction and maintenance.